What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to PlayStation Generation episode 53. My name's Matt, and I'll be your host for today's events. I'm joined, as always, with the Hammer, and he'll explain later as to why. I'm here with Daniru-kun. What's up, Danny?
I need to find a way to change that nickname. It was only good for that one episode.
You picked the nickname. You literally told me to call you that, and now I'm honoring your request, and you're upset about it.
I'm not upset. It's just, is this like a one-time thing? Like now I can't change it ever again, or do I have to pay $10 for something?
I've gone through like 3 or 4 nicknames with you, and you keep complaining. So submit it in the feedback box, and then when I make a feedback box, I'll actually take a look at it.
Sounds good. Okay, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, man. It's good to see you. Rice is lighting a little bit late, but he'll be here in just a moment. But we are stoked to be joined by Inverse's Hayes Madsen today. What's up, Hayes? Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Anybody familiar with Console Creatures will have seen Hayes around. He's been on a bunch of our content, most recently, literally just this past week.
Yeah, like a week ago, yeah.
Yeah, the Clair Obscur review that the Creature Cast did. So make sure you go check that out. They dived much deeper than we're going to here, but we're going to gush about it a little bit. Hayes, if somebody somehow hasn't seen you across the channel before, tell us just a little bit about yourself. Give us the sparks in this. What do you do?
Yeah, so I'm a games writer and journalist. I've been covering games for a little over 15 years now. Inverse.com mostly, but occasionally Rolling Stone and IGN and stuff. And I cover a lot of RPGs. RPGs and interviews are kind of my two big specialties. So
I highly encourage everybody to go check out Hayes' piece from this past week, talking to the producer from the Yakuza series. Great write-up. There's a lot of cool stuff in there, so make sure you go check that out. I don't want to spoil anything because I want those clicks to come Hayes' way, so go check it out. I'll leave it in the show notes so people can find it. All right, folks. This week we have a whole bunch of stuff to talk about. We're going to be talking about Clair Obscur. We're going to be talking about Ghost of Yōtei. We're going to be talking about FBC Firebreak and a whole lot more. But before we do all that, Denny, I'm going to start with you because I feel like Hayes and I have been in the same boat. So we'll get to that in just a second. But Denny, what have you been playing lately, my friend?
Still on Final Fantasy 12. I have had no time to play this week, so I'm basically exactly where I was last Sunday.
Just a busy week.
Oh yeah, running around, Nintendo Switch pre-orders, all that fun stuff.
Did you lock one?
I got one.
Dude, I feel like I shouldn't have. I did this whole I ran to the nearest GameStop day of after failing online over and over again, and then literally they released that GameStop Canada. Good guy GameStop Canada, never words that I expected to come out of my mouth, released an online tracker that tells you which stores have pre-orders left. Every store around me had the bundle still in stock 2 days later.
So I didn't intend on pre-ordering because I figured I wouldn't be able to. I'll be at work when it drops, and I saw Walmart did it at midnight, and within 5 seconds they were all sold out. So it's you know what? I'm okay with that. There's no FOMO here. And then I was at work. We were actually away, so we were out of the city. And I saw an Instagram post, the Good Guy GameStop Instagram post. I looked for my closest GameStop, and they had stock. And I went and I got one. But they had 400 pre-orders that day.
Wow.
And they're no, we have the stock for it. I'm are you serious?
I just had flashbacks to trying to get the original Switch when it first hit, and just how quite literally forever it felt like it was impossible to find. I'm glad that this one seems to be, at least for the bundle, a more easy find. And of course, the PlayStation Hokage himself, Rice boy, joining in. What's up, Rice?
Oh, Hokage arrives just when he intends.
Yeah.
So
I really wish there was a puff of smoke animation that I could use when I'm bringing you in, just to kind of complete the look.
Pretty awesome. Yeah. But I shaved the mustache, so the Fu Manchu isn't present today.
You just draw it back in real quick. It feels weird.
Yeah, just the chin strap today.
Do you remember when you were a kid? I don't know if any of your parents ever had facial hair, but my dad, for the longest time growing up, rocked the biggest, gnarliest mustache. And I'll never forget the day that he shaved it off and came out of the bathroom. And I looked at him, I'm like, who are you?
Yep.
Terrifying.
Did Nico give you anything, Rice? Was he weirded out at all?
No, he actually prefers this. He likes giving me kisses right here.
Fair,
here.
Same.
And when that happens and I have a stash, he's just no. And on top of that, he's like, your breath stinks, even after I've like brushed my teeth. But something about the spikes like also give off, some weird smell that he's just like, no, I'm not gonna kiss you right now, dude.
And that's why, Nico, I get rice for the entire hour this week. The bristles and the smell just add to the experience. Okay.
Absolutely. Yep. It's that moldy coffee breath,
Rice, dude, what you been playing?
I've been playing a little bit of Clair Obscur. And my friends, if you have not tried this game, if you've not played it, my goodness, y'all gotta play it. I've already had, and I'm not even in it. I haven't even really sunk my feet into the waters just yet. Like
Just
I've really just finished the prologue and enjoyed kind of the beginning aspect of this game. But I love everything about it so far. I've had 3 people that I know IRL already tell me it's their game of the year. And it's causing a lot of buzz right now, that's for sure.
Yeah, it really is. That's why I knew that we needed to bring Hayes in this week. Hayes and I, we've talked Monster Hunter before. We've talked the Yakuza TV show on But Why Those, so go check that out. But Hayes, when I think JRPG and when I think knowledge and when I think good takes, Hayes is like the top of my list. So Hayes, how are you feeling about Clair Obscur? Tell me, did you finish it? How deep are you? And give me those thoughts and feelings. I need to know.
Yeah, so I did finish it. I finished it I think a week and a half before the review embargo.
Nice.
And I've done every single thing in that game except the final secret boss that is one of the hardest bosses I've ever seen in my life. But yeah, I loved it. It is my game of the year so far. And I have a hard time. It's going to be in my top 3. There's no way it's not going to be in my top 3 for the year. We still got a lot of time left, but it's just, as you say, I specialize in RPGs and I've played a lot of RPGs. And this kind of captured a feeling that I haven't had in quite a while with an RPG. Kind of like the classic Final Fantasy X or Lost Odyssey kind of feeling.
Yeah, I'm with you entirely. I was excited about this game coming into it, but I was expecting a solid 7.5, 8 out of 10. I was expecting, a good experience. The trailers looked good, and from like the minute that we saw it, I was locked in. But then the prologue just sets the tone. I cried already in the first like 30 minutes of that game, and then continued to cry more times throughout the rest of the experience. It's just something so special about it. I don't think, like Hayes was just saying, I don't think a game, probably since Persona 5, the first time through, really hit me in the way that Clair Obscur has. It is my game of the year, with a bullet so far. Again, I can't see much dethroning it. I'm sure there's plenty to come. But I keep doing this thing this year where I'm like, Monster Hunter is my game of the year. Hold on, wait, Split Fiction is my game of the year. Hold on, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 could probably be my game of the year. Hold on, and then Clair Obscur just so thoroughly put all of that to bed. It's the combat. Some people have called it like a Soulsborne turn-based game, which like I can see it, because like when you get into that parry timing and that dodge timing, it gets tight at points. The writing is just so mature and interesting, and like just the basic setup and everything that it continues to do. I kept waiting for that game to slip, and it never did. And even like the side content, awesome. That like only up style mini game where you're literally just like platforming and you're trying to get to as high as you can, caught me so off guard, and then I spent the next hour zoned in trying to clear it. Like it's just so good.
And I don't know if you've gotten to Act 3 yet, but there is a lot.
I finished it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I'm done.
The end game like side content is really good. This game has a really generous helping of like optional dungeons and bosses and story and the whole like.
Love that.
You get to the end and there's suddenly like 30 more hours of side stuff that you can do.
Yeah,
it's all done in a very compelling way too.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring in our first question, because Nagachaka writes in saying, "I'm hearing nothing but good things about Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Some have even compared it to Persona 5. Is it seriously that good?" Hayes, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I mean, short answer is yes. It is. Yeah. It really is that good. I mean, it's not without its flaws. Like there are certain things you can see. This is the first game from Sandfall Interactive. So there's there's a little bit of jankiness. It's in Unreal Engine 5, so as much as I think this game is beautiful, there is kind of that uncanny valley, like Unreal Engine 5 look that everything has.
Nice.
And not having a mini map, some of the menu stuff doesn't explain the skills super well. But the thing about this game is that everything it does well is done so well that any flaws just do not matter whatsoever. I mean, I think the way the narrative plays out is brilliant. The way it's paced, the twists are some of the twists in this game are really bold swings for a game like this to be making. Combat is great and only gets better the further you get in the game. It's just like, is this a case where it starts out really strong? Like you said with the prologue, like it has a huge bang of an opening, but then it just keeps getting better the further you go. Honestly, in my opinion, right up until the very end, I think it just continually gets better.
I sat there. There's a moment towards the end of the game, and I won't spoil it, but there's a moment where I literally just sat there, and the game was asking me to do something, and I couldn't make a choice. I haven't felt this like paralyzed about what I wanted to do, and I don't even know how long. I literally put the controller down and sat there for 5 minutes. Went upstairs, talked to my wife, like I briefed her about everything that was going on, asked for her opinion, came back down, and still sat there for another 10 minutes. I genuinely didn't know what I wanted to do, because there was so much that the game was putting on the table that I'm like, how is this a game, like a small indie studio of like 30 some odd people out of France, their first game, like all together. How do they hit this hard in a way that just really leaves it to you? Nagachaka, I know how big you are with JRPGs, and you know that I'm in the same boat. This is probably on par with Persona 5 for me. I think that I like this more than Metaphor, which as much as I adore Metaphor, it's still like, in terms of like the Atlas Persona likes, it's still Persona 4 Golden, 5 Royal, and then Metaphor and so on and so forth. This game is better than Persona 3, in my opinion. This game is better than Metaphor. It does so much so right.
Those are big statements from Matt.
I'm saying, there are things,
and he's saying it.
There are things that it misses. Like, I think my biggest criticism is I miss a bestiary. There's no way to like check an enemy that you fought before, especially in battle, to be like, what are its weaknesses? What, or even worse, what attacks does it absorb? There's nothing like that, so it kind of relies on you to remember. And I made a couple of mistakes along the way where I'm like, come on, like I was all like, come on. But then at the same time, the amount of fights that I had go down to the wire, where I was literally down to one party member left, a sliver of health, and whatever enemy I was fighting had significantly more, and just being able to dodge and parry my way, like I locked in. Like I saw the code. You know what I mean? Like I was in the matrix at that moment, dodging and parrying and getting the counterattacks, and everything just clicks. Like
that's kind of like that Souls experience, where you get that moment in a boss battle where you're suddenly locked in and you can do it. But it's all done in like a turn-based combat kind of format. And the interesting thing here is, you probably will hear a lot of people talk about this game in the way that like, it's not necessarily doing anything incredibly new or incredibly innovative, but it's more of the way it has refined all of the things that it's taken from other games. Because, there's clear inspiration from Final Fantasy and from Nier. And from Lost Odyssey and even Souls-likes as well. But it takes all of those and kind of fuses them into this package that is uniquely itself.
And I think it has the benefit of being a new IP from a studio that people don't know. So there's no expectations coming into it. You go in expecting a good game. This game has always showed well. The marketing was on point. The trailers were good. This game has always showed well. But then it really starts to show its hand. It really brings you in, and you're like, oh shit, what? Like, hold on. What do you mean? What do you mean? You're this good. What do you mean? I was literally like messaging a couple of other reviewers that I was talking to. I was like, this might be one of my favorite games of all time if this keeps up. And I just kept waiting for it to slip, and it just didn't at any point. It's just so incredibly impressive. The highest reviewed game of the year so far, highest like player score ever. I'm sure that'll get bombed to shit at some point or the other, but right now it still stands. I'm going to actually bring in our first news story just to kind of celebrate this game, because continuing just singing its praises, coming from Noisy Pixel, written by Orpheus Joshua, Clair Obscur Expedition 33 sells over 1 million units and hits 100,000 Steam player peak. Following the launch of Sandfall Interactive's debut RPG, Clair Obscur Expedition 33, the game has now been confirmed to have sold over 1 million units worldwide just 3 days after launch, not counting Game Pass players.
Wow.
Only sold players, and has already peaked at over 100,000 Steam player peak concurrent for a single player RPG. from an unknown studio.
That's incredible.
Goddamn. It's interesting because I saw some discourse making the rounds on Bluesky where people were like, how is it there? Like, this year seems to be like, this is the next big game. I just kind of feel like this year's just been hitting. I don't know, Hayes, where are you at?
Yeah, I agree. I think this game in particular kind of reveals that there's a real hunger for this particular kind of turn-based game. And it's not that we don't get turn-based games. There's been a lot of phenomenal turn-based games from Dragon Quest 11 and Persona 5 and Metaphor and what have you, but there's a lack of realistic style turn-based games. Some people call them high-fidelity turn-based games. And, there's people who've talked about how Final Fantasy should go back to turn-based forever, and that's a whole different topic. But I think there's a real hunger that we can have these highly stylized turn-based RPGs like Metaphor, like Persona 5, and there's also room for these extremely like high-fidelity, realistic turn-based games like this. And I think Baldur's Gate 3 hit that same note as well.
Right.
And I think it's shown that there's a real hunger for this specific type of RPG.
Rice, how are you feeling about the prologue thus far? Obviously, you're early in, but like, how is it speaking to you? Because I feel like you and I share a lot of the same brain wavelengths, and just the way that I connected with it, I have a feeling it'll hit you similarly. So just tell me early thoughts. I just want to know a little bit more where you're at.
Well, I mean, absolutely. Like, even before this game was released, it was highly anticipated, specifically by you and I. We had been chatting about how beautiful it looked, just how it was presenting in these trailers and the gameplay. We were just so intrigued. Like it had like this, like you say, this high fidelity, and yet done so beautifully with the flourishes and the animations and all of these other things. And I was just so drawn to that one aspect of. Here's a weird.
Rice is cutting in and out a little bit. We're gonna let him catch back up. You good, Rice?
Yo.
There we go. We back.
You're good.
All right, so I was just talking about this weird thing that I have with games where I'll go into the settings and I will actually curate the audio and tweak things so that I experience the story in a certain way. And I feel like the mix of this game with the music, the sound effects, the voices, it was really hitting for me, and I didn't really need to tweak anything further. And so that in itself, for a player like me who cares about the audio experience, was incredible. And so like the more, and it's funny that you say like the more and more you play, you're waiting for something to be like, nah, I don't know if I really vibe with that. And like the issues that you do have become sort of these non-issues later. That's how I feel. I'm dropped into this world. I'm very curious about it. There's mystery around it, and you just want to see what happens. And the gameplay, I think, just like really complements everything that the story is trying to tell.
Denny, I'm curious to ask you, because again, you're somebody who again knows RPGs, knows JRPGs, and I've seen people calling this a JRPG, but calling it RPG, because obviously it's not a Japanese role-playing game, but a French studio.
Yeah.
You haven't started it yet. I want to know, how is this hype affecting you? Where are your expectations at coming into this? Like, how are you feeling coming into this? Because I feel like, is it starting to get to this like overhyped level where you're like, how can it possibly be this thing? What is it doing to you?
Well, it obviously makes me want to play the game a little bit more, but no, it's not gotten to the point where I'm like gonna have super high expectations. To be honest, this game, and I'm probably gonna hear an audible gasp eventually, was not on my radar.
Kick him off now.
Well, good, because I actually want to go and play, and that's a good reason to leave.
All right,
that's fair.
Considering on.
Wow, thanks, guys.
Gotcha.
No,
You're allowed. You're allowed.
Honestly, like just having this conversation alone has made me more excited to play it. I did catch a couple of the trailers. I'm going in still with an open mind. One thing, and I believe it was Hayes who said it, or maybe Matt, I don't remember, but you mentioned Final Fantasy and you mentioned Lost Odyssey. So those two drops alone have got me more hyped than anything to reference those kind of games.
That tickled you.
Oh, I am tickled pink right now. I'm tickled pink. Like you guys have thrown a wrench in my week, and thank you for that, boys.
And it's
I love
interesting because you're such a patient gamer. Usually, you're the type that you roll in when it strikes your fancy. You're good with your battle. You make time. So like, I'm happy to hear that this has shot up the list. That makes me very overjoyed inside.
Yeah, I can expand on that. I wrote an article about this actually. That the number one thing this game reminds me of is Lost Odyssey.
That's awesome.
Both in terms of gameplay, but also like this game really kind of, I think, captures the spirit of Hironobu Sakaguchi's like design philosophy. There's like a spirit. The best way I can describe it is there's like a tonal spirit of like melancholy that sits over this whole game. That's just kind of permeating the entire thing. And I haven't seen a game capture that in a way like this since Lost Odyssey. These are the only two games I can think of. So I think if Lost Odyssey is something that piques your interest, like you hear that, this is a game you should play, because I think this is like the closest we're ever going to get to another Lost Odyssey game.
Ooh, those are incredible.
That's amazing. Matt, kick me off now. I got to go play.
Okay, bye. But I'm also surprised because like I'm seeing these reactions online. People like on Reddit, on Bluesky, all over the place. There's so many people talking about this game. I feel like every time I load up any insert social media here, there's another post, somebody singing its praises, somebody saying how like not a turn-based fan, this game has maybe started to get me interested in the genre. Like that would be the one thing that I'll say is that this game is a AA game at $50 US. It's not even full price. $30 US cheaper than Mario Kart World. So just let that sink in. And much more cheaper if you're counting in Canadian dollars. This is something that shouldn't exist, but it does, and it hits every point that you could want it to. So go check out Expedition 33. I'm really excited to hear more about Rice and Denny's playthroughs as they get up a little bit further in, because this game is just so good. Like it's so good. Hayes, I have to ask before we hop off this, is there anything foresight for the rest of the year here? Best guesses. Do you see anything dethroning this?
Not at the moment. I'm trying to like the only thing I can think is GTA 6.
Okay.
Like, that is obviously going to be the big question mark around Game of the Year.
Yeah,
when that comes out, and unless like Nintendo has something really up its sleeve for first year Switch 2. But in terms of what is announced right now that we know about, I guess it might be a good segue. Ghost of Yōtei is maybe the only thing I can think about that might match that.
Sure.
Let's perfectly ride that segue over to the PlayStation blog coming from Andrew Goldfarb over at Sucker Punch. Ghost of Yōtei comes to PlayStation 5 on October 2nd. We got a new trailer. We got the release date. We got, the confirmation of its pre-order stuff. There is physicals. There is statues. No, not statue. Yeah, there's a mask. There's a whole lot to dive in here. I just don't get what PlayStation is doing. Like a random, what was it, Tuesday or Wednesday morning?
It was Wednesday morning, yeah.
By the way, here's the release date for our biggest game of the year. Don't worry about Summer Game Fest. Don't worry about State of Play. What this reads to me, obviously very excited about the game. They must have an idea of when GTA 6 is coming if they feel confident enough that they're willing to drop a release date now. Hayes, what are you looking forward to from Yōtei? Like, what does this game need to do to, again, battle for that number one spot? Because Tsushima was awesome. Is Yōtei going to be more of the same?
Tsushima was great. I love Ghost of Tsushima, but it is very much this is kind of weird to say now in retrospect with Shadows out. But at the time, Tsushima was very much kind of like, oh, this is Assassin's Creed. Like PlayStation's take on Assassin's Creed. And I think a lot of what is in Tsushima is already great. So if you kind of keep the exploration elements, the combat was really great, kind of refine that a little more. But what I'm really looking for from Yōtei is a little more compelling of a story, I think. Because I love Jin, and I liked a lot of Tsushima's storytelling, but it also kind of felt a little too meandering. Like you spent a large portion of that game not really knowing what the point of a lot of it was. So I think I would like a little tighter of a story from this game.
I'm with you. I feel like the midsection of Tsushima kind of gets lost in the weeds a little bit before. I think it starts strong and ends strong. That midsection gets a little meandery. Rice, how are we feeling about October 2nd to dive into Ghost of Yōtei?
Oh, I'll be in there. I'll be right in there. And to really echo what you guys are saying about Tsushima, yeah, like while I did feel that, doing side stuff did kind of build a world and complement what they were trying to tell, it's not like it was a ground shaking kind of new narrative.
Mhm.
This struggle of ideals and like moving forward and uh, just like the way of the samurai and how Jin has to leave all of that behind. Now that has kind of laid the groundwork for the Ghost of Tsushima world or the Ghost of whatever, Yōtei has potential to become that much more.
Mhm.
And I think that we were talking about this before, but there was kind of this like yearning for Jin to be kind of more this visceral, kind of violent and rageful character rather than this calm and collected individual throughout the story, and we didn't feel that ramped up as much as we would have liked. And so I'm interested to see how this new character is in this story.
Yeah, I'm stoked to see Erika Ishii in that title role. I'm sure they're going to absolutely crush it. Denny, as the
Yes.
patient gamer, is Yōtei a day one for you?
Purchase? Yes. Play?
Mhm.
I don't know. We'll see what's still in the backlog.
2 years later.
You might be finishing Expedition 33 by that point.
Or maybe I'll finish Ghost of Tsushima by then. It's only
Probably
been 5 years.
probably a good place to start. And you also said you're going to finish The Last of Us by the end of this year, right?
I'm working on it. Yes.
I believe in you, buddy. You got this. Yeah,
You got it,
I can't wait. Yōtei looks great. Like I am curious to see, because I feel like with a lot of PlayStation's recent sequels, the kind of narrative, especially around God of War, has been like, this is that again. So I'm kind of curious to see whether Yōtei will kind of evade those kind of same kind of criticisms. I'm sure we are going to get a lot of, similar or a lot of the same, but I'm curious to see what they're going to do to kind of make it take that next step forward or make it feel different. I am hoping for a story that's a little bit stronger. I really loved a lot of the side content in Tsushima. I felt it was genuinely worthwhile and interesting. So I'm kind of hoping they kind of capitalize on that again. There's dual wielding now. I'm stoked. Like, just give me two swords and let me whirl around like a little salad spinner of death.
Like
I think
Leonardo.
the setting could be interesting too, because it takes place like 300 years after
Yes.
Ghost of Tsushima. So I think a more more advanced technology within that realm could do a lot in terms of diversifying gameplay and story both.
And I do think that Yōtei correct me if I'm wrong, is it a more like mountainous area from what we know? So let me ask you all this then. Are we gonna have a glider?
Oh my gosh.
Is that gonna be like the Summer Game Fest thing? They're gonna show another trailer and it's gonna end with like and then we're gonna see her, flying off.
We did talk about this with Rise of the Ronin. And as much as like we didn't like that as much as a whole, the glider was like, we were like, this needs to be standardized amongst like any traversal for this kind of game. So I would be very intrigued to see how traversal would work in this game.
Yeah, the other thing I'm interested to see is how they implement guiding wind, because that was a mechanic that really tons of people have taken that from that.
Sure.
That was if there was anything that was innovative about Tsushima, I think it was that.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I'm really fascinated to see if they do anything more with that.
Yeah, seriously, like the world really felt much more alive, like guiding wind, and even just like them using like the foxes and different ways of like making you feel more organically tied to that space.
Totally.
Curious to see. Let's roll on to our next story coming from us over here at Console Creatures. We got the release date for FBC Firebreak. It's launching on June 17th. This was written by the boy, Dennis Price. Earlier today, Remedy hosted an FBC Firebreak focused behind-the-scenes live stream. During the presentation, the studio revealed that its first cooperative shooter and self-published title will launch on June 17th, according to a press release via the live stream VOD. It's $49.99 USD for the deluxe. $39.99 USD for the standard, a spinoff of Control. Obviously, anybody who knows Remedy stuff, it's going to be hitting PlayStation Plus as well, extra and premium, and on Game Pass. How are we feeling about this game, folks? Denny, I'm gonna ask you first. How are we feeling about FBC Firebreak? Is this doing anything for you?
Not really, no. But I'll try it. Hey, it's on PS Plus, so I'll give it a try and go from there.
Hayes, where are we at?
Yeah, I am probably a little more hot on it, I think. Partially because Remedy is one of my favorite studios out there. And I'm huge into the Remedy's connected universe and everything, and I've written an ungodly amount of articles about it. But I also think that, in the current live shooter space, I think there's a real lack of Left 4 Dead style shooters.
Oh, tell
Those
them.
kind of cooperative survival shooters. And this seems to very much be leaning into that aspect. And I think Remedy is smartly taking a very player first kind of approach between pricing and, microtransactions are all cosmetic. Any gameplay updates are free for everyone, and putting it on PS Plus and Game Pass.
Yeah.
I'm hesitantly excited because obviously this is Remedy's first multiplayer game. So I think there is going to be some growing pains there. How could there not be? But I'm very interested to see where it goes.
I'm with you on that. I've really kind of fallen in love with Remedy over the last few years. Like I really liked Control, really fell in love with Alan Wake and Alan Wake 2. I'm very, very excited for this game to dive in. I think Plus is a genius move. I guess again, with any game that's hitting now, especially anything remotely live servicey, there's the giant question. And Rice, I want to go to you for the resident shooter live service aficionado. What does this game need to do right? And I'm not going to bring up Concord, but I am going to bring up Concord because that's the only thing that people can compare anything to anymore. What does this game need to do to be successful? It's starting with the right steps: PlayStation Plus, Game Pass, a consumer-friendly pricing structure. What does it need to do to really hit?
Not be marathon.
Really?
Wow.
And hey, that's coming from me who's been with Bungie, diehard Destiny 2 fan all these years. I don't necessarily want an extraction shooter. We talked about this genre last time, and but I do love cooperative shooters. I played a lot of the Division 2. Court played a lot of Division 2. I love the PvE events of Destiny 2, and generally, if you're just working together towards a common goal, I mean, you mentioned Left 4 Dead. Oh my gosh, hours and hours and hours of gameplay and memories attached to that. So I want something that I can jump into with friends and legitimately make memories. I think that the issue that Bungie kind of ran into is this idea of content burnout, and I think that has to do with how content was released, and how big DLCs were, and I think that there was just so much all at once that people would play the shit out of this DLC and then just get tired of it and then complain that there was nothing to do. And so maybe they have to perhaps curate how content is released, make sure that the multiplayer experience is just out of the bat good, smooth. These growing pains, yes, we're gonna run into them, and I know that a lot of people who are excited about this game are gonna be patient about it, but just to have a smooth experience at first, it needs that, because we've used this word a lot. It's oversaturated, this genre, and it needs to be just mad smooth, super good, and memorable.
I like that you brought up the point of Bungie and these kind of massive kind of tent pole expansions that they kind of seem to focus on. I'm sure there was the kind of sparse offering of content along the way, but as Hayes already mentioned, they've confirmed that their kind of post launch stuff is going to be free. And I mean, Final Fantasy 14 is a great example of having your massive tent pole expansions, but having really cool stuff along the way to kind of keep you engaged between those two things. So, Hayes, I want to ask you, what do you want the content to look like for you to keep you engaged over a longer period of time? What can this game do to kind of really keep you locked over time? Because it sounds like they're not going to need these huge things if they can kind of split them up and release them more consistently.
I think it needs to really hit kind of the core idea of what I'm hoping this game in general does, is kind of leaning into that the weirdness of the Control universe.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
each match in the game is a job that you're taking on, and each job has kind of like unique gimmicks or unique mechanics. And I think leaning wholeheartedly into that and making these jobs feel as different as possible. Everyone needs to feel unique, like a unique experience. And I think especially in terms of post-launch content, the more you can kind of breed these unique experiences, the more people are going to want to stick to it or come back to it later on.
I think you're onto something there. I feel like if they're able to kind of hit that same general area that I think Helldivers 2 landed, and when I reference Helldivers 2, I mean they were pretty successful in their launch in the follow through that came after, but delivering this unique experience, like even the trailer that they were showing off with like the post-it notes, being an actual threat or whatever. Like there's so many cool ideas, and I think if this game leans into its ridiculousness, like Helldivers 2 did to its silliness, I think we could have something really cool here.
Yeah.
Let's roll on to our next story. What the industry has been calling the best kept secret inside of all of gaming, coming from once again us at Console Creatures over here. This one was written by the Don himself, Bobby. Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion remake launched today. This happened earlier this week. Virtuos is working on the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion remake. Rumors were flying around. There's been images leaked, but now it is fully out. It dropped on the 22nd. It hits Game Pass. It's $66.99 for anybody who's buying it properly. Deluxe edition, of course, comes with special armor, weapons, and more at $79.99. I am not a Bethesda RPG person. I've tried with these games across Fallout, Skyrim, Starfield. They don't click with me. I'm kind of curious to hear the panel's thoughts. Hayes, you said you just started it. Are you a Bethesda person? Are you like, how are you feeling about Oblivion?
I used to be a Bethesda person. I have not been since Fallout 4.
Okay.
Because I think after Fallout 4, I realized I don't really like their formula anymore, and I think it's grown too stale. I tried like 12 hours of Starfield, and it just I just couldn't stick with it. But I did go back to Oblivion because Oblivion's kind of like a special for a lot of people. I think for like myself, it was kind of a special game. It's the first game I got on my Xbox 360, kind of like the first proper open world game I ever played. Yeah. And so I have been enjoying going back to it, mostly because I think there's such a like bizarre undercurrent to that game's world. It's just like everything feels so strange and so weird, from like the weird comments NPCs make to like the glitches that I've continuously run into again. I kind of appreciate that they didn't seem to fix any of the glitches that were in the original game whatsoever. Which, you would think they would for a modern release. And normally I might care about that, but I think that is honestly kind of the spirit of Oblivion. There are certain things I don't love so far. I think like the updated character models kind of look hideous, like not in a good way. But yeah, I've been enjoying going back to it so far.
Rice, Denny, have either one of you hopped in?
Not yet, but kind of looking forward to it for the same reasons, because this was also this game was a good bonding experience for me and my roommate back in the day, because he had it for his Xbox and I played it after he played it. But it's the exact same thing. There are so many stories out there with people being happy that certain quirks of the game have not been ironed out. Like, literally read an article I think earlier today about someone who was chased by a murderous unicorn in this game. And as soon as I read that, like, it made me think of all the glitches that I went through, and the random stuff that just happened. And it's just a fun time. So I'm excited to get back into it. I think though that is a little bit more like me going in with nostalgia goggles. So but I think that's exactly why they did what they did with it, and bring people back.
I'm interested to see if like us going back and playing this game, like, oh, this is charming. Someone who has never played it, who might be more in tune with modern games, probably does not feel the same.
That's why I'm really curious to try it. I'm gonna try it on Game Pass because like I want to see if it's me. Is it just not like I just don't vibe with the way that they put their games together? And I'm curious to see, because as I have heard, there's a lot of stuff in this game that stays faithful to the original for better or for worse. So I'm kind of curious to see how that hits me. Rice, what about you?
I'm intrigued. Okay, so I actually jumped into Skyrim. I sunk an enormous amount of time into Skyrim and loved my experience. And so like I tried to jump into other Bethesda stuff and unfortunately did not hit as much. And I didn't actually get to play Oblivion. So I'm intrigued because I actually haven't played the original. And from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, Hayes and Denny, like a lot of people liked Oblivion more than they liked Skyrim. What was your take on that?
I think it's a hard thing because I think a lot of people I would say that Skyrim is objectively the best Elder Scrolls game. I think in terms of sheer gameplay, just because of a lot of the improvements made there. But in terms of like theming and stuff, I think a lot of people like Oblivion and Morrowind better, just because they feel more. Skyrim's world and story is kind of very flat a lot of times, and it is uninteresting. Whereas Oblivion and even more so Morrowind have a lot of very quirky elements to them that just kind of got lost as the series went on.
Yeah.
So that makes me excited because I mean, I know what to expect. And it's interesting because then it makes me think like, well, I guess is this game just for like, is nostalgia the biggest seller here? Because if it's not for modern gamers, then it really is just for people wanting to re-experience this game and love it and hate it like they used to.
Yeah, that's kind of my major question too. I'm curious to see how newer audiences are going to kind of gravitate towards this, myself included. I'm curious. I've never played the original. I'm curious to see how it hits. But we'll talk more about this.
See. It's installed.
We'll see. Yeah, I have to install it still, but I will get that going on that good old Xbox Series X. Let's hit one more kind of major story before we roll into some questions, because these are the games leaving PS Plus Premium and Extra in May 2025. It's coming from Thomas Franzese over at GameSpot. I'm going to run through this list real quick. I'm not going to go through the entirety of it, but there's a couple points that I want to touch on. GTA 5 is leaving, MotoGP 2024, The Sims 4 Island Living, Resistance, Fall of Man, Resistance 2, Walkabout Mini Golf, Synth Riders, Ghostbusters, Rise of the Ghost Lord Before Your Eyes, The Walking Dead, Saints and Sinners, Walking Dead, hold on. More Lego, Ghost Runner, Payday 2, Bloodstained, Journey to the Savage Planet, Portal Knights, Enter the Gungeon, Batman, and Infamous Second Son. Games leaving the service are not abnormal, but there's a lot of people that have taken issue with this because of the first-party games that are leaving the service in Resistance 1 and 2 and in Infamous Second Son. Folks have pointed out that this is kind of like the only way to really play Resistance outside of having, your PS3 and the physical copies of the game. I don't understand why, and that's why I wanted to bring this up, because I don't know. Like, we've seen moments like this happen, like with Horizon Zero Dawn, for example, was taken out, and that was obviously because the new version was coming, the remake was coming. Resistance, if there's hope for something new, that's cool. Infamous Second Son is not the favorite Infamous by any stretch of the imagination for a lot of people. I liked Second Son just fine, and I am one of its more staunch defenders, but I can appreciate that people don't think it's the best one. I don't understand why we're losing first-party titles on a service that PlayStation owns in the same week that it went up in a bunch of places all over the world, including Canada. We're now it's now $189.99 for Extra, which was the premium price, and like $224.99 for premium. And again, these are premium titles because this is the streaming back catalog stuff and the VR stuff. I don't get it. So I want to see if there's anybody smarter than me that can maybe share some light as to why this is a thing.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Unless, like you said with Horizon, if there's some intent for something new to happen, or even like a Resistance trilogy or something.
Sure.
But Infamous seems like a weird... I mean, theoretically, you could say that, I don't know, maybe hosting these games on the service is some minimal cost, and they circulate new things in to replace the old things. But realistically, I think a service like PlayStation Plus, you can have as many games on as you want, and there doesn't there's not really a detriment to having as many games on there as possible.
Mhm.
I think Game Pass has kind of shown that, even though that also has games leave. But
Yeah.
I think third-party games pulling off is an entirely separate matter with different stakeholders and different owners of IP. But first-party feels very strange to take off just unceremoniously like this.
Yeah, like you said, unless there's some sort of like collection happening, even for Infamous, if they want to do
Yeah,
like a
and
1, 2, and Second Son combo, I don't know. Rice, Rice, my dude. We're cutting in and out again. Are you there? Rice, you back? We don't know if he's back.
Hello?
There you go. Sorry, you were saying. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I cut you off.
No,
I was just
okay.
saying
Oh.
it's a wide spectrum of games too. So there is no like discernible trail that we can follow here. Your guess is as good as mine. But Hayes raises a good point. You could make arguments for, how many people are playing these games, versus ones that are bangers right now. But I don't really think that that really holds weight. So yeah, weird. Agreed that it's weird.
Especially because again, prices just went up with this whole PR shtick of bringing value to the players. Meanwhile, they're taking off first party stuff. Denny, I feel like you usually have some good insight into these matters.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate the compliment.
You're welcome.
Well, I was just thinking about this. The Resistant games are by Insomniac, and they are now, I believe, they're considered a first party developer. But I'm wondering if it's something with the timing. Because I think Resistance, well, obviously their PS3 games, was Insomniac not first party at that time, so maybe there's some licensing issue.
I think even if they were contracted by PlayStation holds the rights for Resistance. Yeah, so it would have been first party regardless of who developed it at the time.
Could it be like I feel like sometimes with some of these games, it's like a music licensing thing sometimes, where it's like there's this one track in a game that for whatever reason they don't have the rights to, or they have like a certain amount of time that these rights expire by. Like I that's the only real thing that I can think of outside of like, I don't know. I can't defend the position in any other way. Like,
no, it doesn't make sense. That's why we're sitting here like in circles, like trying to figure out why. We're trying to justify why this is happening, right?
Just weird. Just weird.
It's on brand for PlayStation, though.
It is.
Resistant Remaster coming out October 2nd.
Going up against Ghost of Yōtei.
Get an announcement on like 6 p.m. on a Wednesday.
on like August. Twitter first, and then the blog,
exactly,
and then on Bluesky. Let's hit one more quick news story, because we got something that opinions have been asking for, coming from the PlayStation blog themselves. The new PS5 system software update features audio focus and the return of classic console UI customizations. This is coming from Shuzo Kikuchi over from Sony. Audio focus is pretty cool. You can kind of more closely edit and plus with your audio. So I'm sure Rice is going to be excited about this, really being able to kind of go in and boost certain frequencies in certain areas. And then the thing that people have been excited about, because with PlayStation 30th anniversary, they obviously rolled out like the PS1, 2, 3, and 4 style UIs, and then they took it away, and everybody's like, why did you do that? They're yours.
I think it's wild that seemed like a surprise to them.
Yeah. People, they're like, what do you guys want to keep these? And it's like, what? There's still no themes or anything else on the system. Of course we want. This is cool. It's back. It's back. I don't know what took them this long, but it's back. That's cool. I'm still using the OG PS1 one. That's the one that I'm going to be locking right back in on as soon as that comes back, because I love that. It's just cool. I just like it. This is good guy PlayStation kind of
nostalgia
for bringing it back. I forgot to mention something at the top of the show. I've been playing Days Gone Remastered. PlayStation sent that over.
Shoot.
I've been playing that. I still don't know how I feel about this game.
Oh no.
I genuinely went in with an open mind, because I tried to play it when it first came out, and it did not click with me at all. I could not vibe with it. So coming back into it, I was like, I usually like all of PlayStation's first party stuff. Maybe it was a time and place thing. Maybe there's something that I missed. And starting it back up, it looks pretty. Like a lot of the fog and like a lot of the lighting and stuff has been improved. It does look good. I think the way that I have to frame this game, and I think maybe the way that I wasn't framing it before, this is a bad CW show.
Interesting.
Because I was expecting, I think, initially when it came out, it wasn't too long after The Last of Us, and like especially narratively, especially in its kind of opening while, it hits a lot of similar narrative beats. And I kind of was, you don't have that level of seriousness or delivery or writing or anything else that you get in The Last of Us. This is much more like profanity laden, and as someone who swears like a sailor, that shouldn't bother me, but it feels performative. Like there's just something about this game that you kind of have to separate part of your brain playing it, because I think that's the way that I'm enjoying it. I've hopped into the Horde Assault mode, and that's actually pretty fun. You're trying to stay alive for as long as you can. Even though it's also been a bit bugged for me, there's been certain supply crates that I just couldn't open. And like some of them are like locked until you reach a certain like point threshold, which I was well above. And I had to go, taking off and praying. And at one point I was literally standing. I was like, okay, I got myself this little compound. There's gates around. I set up a bunch of mines on the way in. I'm like, I got this. I got my sniper. And then I shit you not, I'll post this on Bluesky after. There was probably 80 enemies just literally spawned out of the ground in this giant clump inside the compound. So all of the work that I just did to set up for them incoming was instantly rendered useless. And I was sitting there, I was like, what are you talking about? So I just started throwing Molotovs like they were candy.
Yeah.
I'll see how long I stick with it. I do want to give this game a fair shake, but I think I have to kind of go into it in like this almost like B movie, a little bit more schlocky. Like it's I think that's the way I have to frame it to enjoy it, because I don't think this was the one that they should have spent the time and investment on bringing back, but it's here, so I want to give it that fair shake. Hayes, have you been playing it at all?
Not the updated version, but I did play a little bit of the original game, and I felt very much the same as you.
Yeah,
I think the problem is I also just don't really like Deacon all that much.
Yeah.
And I think the main issue is that you don't really ever get a sense of like what he believes in. Like with Joel in The Last of Us, you have a pretty clear idea of who he is as a person, like what his belief systems are, the lengths he's willing to go to. But Deacon you don't really ever get a sense of like who he was before the world was like this, outside of like he loves his wife. He's a wife guy.
The love interest, yeah.
That's the only thing you really know about him.
He's a wife guy. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I have to agree with you though, because even again, like spoilers for the first 5 minutes of Days Gone, like his wife dies, and then it cuts to like 2 years later, and there's literally like a sequence where you're on the bike with your buddy, and then you're like, you go at these infected, and you're like stabbing them, whatever, and his friend is like, "Stop it! I know that you are still mourning the loss of your wife now 2 years ago, but you have to understand that." Like, it's just so like in your face with what it's trying to communicate to you. Like, there's no subtlety, there's no subtext. Everything is thrown at you constantly. So that's what I mean. I have to frame this as like a bad, like not even like a fun CW, like The Flash or parts of Arrow. Like I'm like this is like Riverdale when it's at its most batshit at points. Like I can't look at it in any other way if I want to enjoy it. And like I know that sounds critical, but
No, you said Riverdale. That was like, that's bad.
And again, the show has its fans. It ran for like 15 seasons or whatever it was, and ended in a much different place than what it started. But
it got weird.
I mean, that's putting it lightly.
Yeah.
That's a very light touch.
Riverdale is the all-time weird show.
Like, if anybody hasn't watched it, just go watch like a plot synopsis on YouTube and promise me that you won't fall asleep, because I guarantee you when you wake up, it'll be in a much different place than when you were when you started. Okay, I promise you that.
Oh yeah.
So I'm gonna keep with it. I'll have more on the show about it next week, but I want to throw that out there before, because
here's interesting though, man. Like,
tell me.
why do we have to nerf our expectations in order to maybe like the game? Like to maybe like the game. And this is the second time you're experiencing it, so it's like it's kind of a shame that you do have to think that way, because for those that it did click with, I understand that, like, if you stick with it, they in some way, shape, or form But if I can't,
I love how Rice is desperately trying to make his point here, and his audio just keeps
It's
cutting
so
out.
informative.
It's so
oh
informative.
no,
Okay, we're back.
I'm
We're back.
so sorry.
We're back.
What's going on? Where did I end? Okay. I'm just trying to say that, like, if a character is not memorable within like the first few hours of a game, I'm kind of out. I'm kind of out.
And that's what I mean. I want to give this an honest shake because again, like I don't know if it was time and place or not. And I do think there are some forms of media that you need to kind of reframe for yourself to enjoy it properly. So now that I have that
Sure.
kind of different viewpoint, I want to see if I can come to enjoy it. Like framing it that way, will I enjoy it, or am I not even going to be able to make it past that initial hurdle?
So was it framed to be, was it originally framed to be a double A experience?
It was a triple A, like, serious, self-serious biker gang going up against, and even like the infected or whatever are called freakers. Like, come on. Like, I feel like
Yeah, dude.
I feel like history would have been much kinder to this game if, like we had mentioned previously about FBC Firebreak, it just went all in on its stupidity. And I feel like then you would have, if all of this felt intentional, that's a different situation where it's desperately trying to be one thing and it plays off like something else entirely.
Yeah, I think if you made it tonally like a schlocky B horror movie, would have been a lot more successful than rather than kind of like a mix of schlock and super serious.
Yeah.
And it just kind of like doesn't do either exceptionally well.
Yeah. I'll talk more about it next week. Let's roll into some questions that we have from our wonderful audience here. Savoy Prime at Savoy Prime. What's up, SP? Writes in saying, sup, PG crew. Rice, this one's for you. If Marathon doesn't hit for PlayStation, do you think that's going to be it for Bungie, or just a nail in the coffin for Sony's live service plans?
Yes. Listen, man, if anybody followed news on Destiny 2, but even before the final shape was released, while the final shape did receive praise, players fell into kind of the normal pattern of burnout and what's next and how is this going to continue? What is this sustainable? Not to mention just the behind the scenes stuff that was going on, the controversies with the CEO, mass layoffs. I genuinely believe, like, and judging by how the business model like slowly changed in Destiny 2 and more microtransactions, all of these things in mind, I think that Marathon has to really do something here. It really does. And I'm still gonna jump into it, and I'm gonna really give that um a certain amount of time in order to, I guess, find its footing, but it's got to be good. It's got to be good. I hope it is, and I really hope it is. But yes, to answer your question, I think that it would be trouble for Bungie.
Hayes, what do you think?
I pretty much agree. I think the caveat here is that I think PlayStation's live service plans are pretty much dead already.
Yeah.
I have a hard time seeing how they're really going to carve out of it. Like they announced those 12 live service titles however many years ago, right? And like we've now seen 8 of them, I think, either released like Helldivers or canceled like Last of Us Factions, or a few successes like or cancellations like Concord. But I don't know what Bungie does if Marathon doesn't hit, because Destiny 2 feels like it's kind of on the tail end of its life, even though it still has a good player base. They've sunk a lot of resources into Marathon, clearly, and then I believe they canceled their MOBA that they were making, right? The codename Gummy Bears.
Yep.
So it's like, if this isn't the last shot for Bungie, their last shot has to be like Destiny 3, I feel like.
Yeah.
Denny, any thoughts?
I think everything's already been kind of said. Like, I think, yeah, this has to hit for Destiny or Bungie. Sorry. I hope it does, because less studios means less games. And for PlayStation's live service, yeah, I think that ship has sailed way beyond already. So it's tough.
Let me ask you guys something, because I feel like as we've been chatting, there is something that fired up in the back of my brain that I'm curious to see if you all think is even remotely possible. We've
Okay.
seen the landscape of gaming shift drastically over the last year or two. Xbox is now third party. PlayStation tried live service and failed miserably. Bungie, as much as you want to talk about Destiny, came up on Halo. Do you think that there is a possibility that if Marathon flops, we get Xbox and PlayStation? And I mean this genuinely. I don't I'm not even trying to pie in the sky here. But what if they do make a deal where Xbox help finances, it releases multi-platform, maybe they get it on Game Pass, whatever, and we do see maybe not them come to a new numbered Halo title, because I think they Microsoft desperately wants 343 to land on one finally, but another ODST, another Halo game that exists in the universe to some extent and is on all intents and purposes a new Halo, but one that Bungie has now come back to. Because even with Destiny 3, given how Destiny 2 kind of puttered out and everything, like I that's a lot of money and a lot of time for them to stick into that. I don't know if they're going to see the same returns on. I think that it kind of needs to be a multi-platform next gen new Halo. Do we think that's even a possibility?
That's so interesting, man. It's interesting. The fandom around Halo is incredible, and the discourse alone on that idea would be the best marketing for it, and that's why I laugh, because that's a crazy idea, and it's like one of those but it just might work, So yeah, that's intriguing.
I don't know. Hayes, what do you think?
I think it theoretically is possible. I think whatever happens with Bungie, it has to be different, because Bungie was one of the formative studios in creating the competitive shooter space and the live service shooter space.
Mm-hmm.
But those spaces are now so overblown and so inundated with different games, and there's too much that something new has a hard time breaking in.
Mm-hmm.
So I think whether it's another Halo or something else, I think Bungie really needs to try and do something really creative and original again. And I don't know that I personally don't know that Marathon looks like that so far.
Yeah.
Crash test dummies.
Crash test dummies. Rice nailed that. Rice nailed that last week. Denny, am I off my rocker?
No, you're not off your rocker. Just don't make another Halo Wars. Just don't make another Halo Wars.
Yeah,
you hate it on that? Okay.
I'm just saying.
I think RTS are a harder thing to sell to a mainstream audience than a Halo shooter.
Yeah.
Let's end out with one last question coming from Jaden Rose saying, "Hey dudes, I hope you've been safe and well. You too, my friend. A fun question for you. You got sucked into your PlayStation and are stuck in the last game you played. Where are you and how friggin' doomed are you? I'd be stuck in Lost Records. Thank God I took a break from Death Stranding." Hayes, how screwed are you if you get sucked into your PlayStation for the last game that you lived in?
Well, I'm lucky that I played Oblivion today, because I actually did. I beat Death Stranding last night. So coincidentally, Oblivion, I guess I have fair shot, I think, depending on where I am. If I'm not in like Kvatch or something, I might be okay.
I think you could live. I think Oblivion is a fair shake. Danny, what about you?
Well, if it's the last PlayStation game I've played, then I'm going to be in Ivalice for Final Fantasy 12, so I'm screwed.
Oh, touche.
Right,
for myself, I would be in the dystopian Night City, Cyberpunk.
Ooh.
Yeah. So I mean, that could be great and that could be awful.
Dude, I think you could. I think you'd do well in Night City. I can see it.
Thanks, man.
I can see you tricked out with some cool augments. I can see you living large down there.
I would just have a guitar as a hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, not be able to play it.
But hold on, from what end? Is it like the bottom of the guitar and then goes up to like where the frets are, or is it in reverse or sideways?
The head of the guitar,
where
and the body of the guitar is right here.
Okay,
like on my shoulder.
So the whole guitar is your arm.
Not even an arm. It's like
yes,
it's the arm.
And there's no there, right. there's no like hinge either, so it's just forever. Like I can't bend it.
I worry for you, man, because I'm thinking about that old Juicy Fruit commercial right now.
I would just be a busker. I would
Uh,
probably just do the same thing that I
Just
would
standing
do.
there.
Yep. So
well, if Days Gone hasn't fucked me enough today with randomly spawning enemies and supply crates that won't open, I'm dead. I am absolutely screwed. There is no shot I live through those hordes. Like, absolutely not. I'd really have to like commit to the bit and go like all out in all of the emotions all of the time and just really tell everybody how I'm feeling.
yeah.
And then maybe I'll survive. But yeah, I don't see myself lasting very
It's a
long.
lot of cardio.
It's a lot of cardio.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, that is one thing that really bothers me about that goddamn game. Your stamina runs out so fast, and it takes so fucking long for it to come back. You look like me running. That shouldn't be a thing. You're far more muscular. Come on, I understand that you ride this bike, but this shouldn't be a thing.
It's the denim, bro.
It's the denim, bro. Too much denim. That Canadian tuxedo just weighing him down. That brings us to the end of this week's show, folks. Thank you so much for writing in. Hayes, it was an absolute pleasure having you. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Where can people see more of you?
Yeah, thank you for having me on. You can find me on Bluesky and Twitter at Soulfleet. And most of my work at inverse.com.
Go check Hayes out in all the places. I hope you come back and hang out with us again in the future. Denny, where can people see you?
Mostly Instagram and Twitch, and everything else you can find on Linktree/Denerican Gaming.
Go check out Denny and all the spots. And Rice, my boy.
Yes, sir. You can find me on my Linktree, Rice BOYYY TV, as well as Linktree/We Are Minnow, creating content.
Damn it, Rice. Right at the finish line.
Lately.
Rice, what about We Are Minnow? What is Minnow doing? Please tell me what Minnow's doing, Rice.
Me?
Oh, no.
I won't sleep. He really broke this time. Are we back?
Hello?
Rice, what is
Hello?
We Are
Rice,
Minnow?
just text it. We'll read it out loud. Don't worry.
What about We Are Minnow? What are you doing with Minnow?
He is Minnow.
He is Minnow.
He is Minnow.
Oh,
Nope.
Yo.
We Are Minnow.
Yes, go follow the Linktree. We won't waste any more of your time, but we're doing great things, and you should follow. And the cliffhanger is the best marketing for this. Anyway,
There you go.
bye.
Go check out Rice and all the spots. Go follow Minnow doing fantastic work for the community. As for myself, you can find myself over on Bluesky at Matt_SilverSoul, and you can find my work over at Console Creatures and at But Why Though, folks. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. Be safe, be well, and we will see you next week. Peace.
Bye.